KTRK TV. This is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is KTRK TV. How do you hear me?
We hear you loud and clear, Tom. How do you hear us?
I hear you just great, Scott. It is really great to talk to you once again. I just have to ask you after all this time, how are you holding up there physically and mentally?
Yeah, we're holding up pretty good. Both Misha and I, we're hanging in there. You know, a year's a long time, and feels like, at least for me, that I've lived my whole life up here sometimes. And but it's not like we're climbing the walls or anything to get out of here. We're still doing productive work, and we still have a pretty high energy level. So all's good.
This trip has obviously, or will be, more than double your last one. Can you tell the difference on your body this time?
You know, a lot of the effects on of microgravity on our physiology are things we can't see. They're the effects on our bone mass. You know, some muscles. I mean, I could tell a little bit where you know, due to exercise, you get more muscles some places and less somewhere else, specifically in your calves, because we don't walk a lot. You know, they get pretty small. But you know, also there's a little bit of effects on vision, but I haven't seen any changes there. And then there are the effects on your immune system and you know, the effects of radiation on us at a genetic level, which are things we don't see. But hopefully, you know, we'll learn about those. And when the ground analyzes all the data and writes you know, papers on this and does you know, the post-flight research, we'll come to know a lot more about being in space for a really long time.
You and I talked a lot before you left about what you'd miss up there. So what do you miss most, besides family and friends?
Well, besides that, going outside, the you know, the sun, the wind, the rain, of course. Also, the you know, the freedom to do the things you want to do when you want to do them. We have a very constrained schedule up here that we follow very closely for much of the week. And it'll be nice not to have to do that for a little while once I get home.
What have you learned in your year about yourself, personally speaking?
Well, you know, I think that I've learned a little bit more about you know, how I can deal with being in a situation like this, being confined and you know, separated from the rest of humanity. You know, I think I handle it pretty well. But you know, one thing I've also learned is just the you know, the power of our ability to dream big and do great things. I mean, I am always amazed at the you know, the scope and capacity of the space station we built. And you know, the more time I'm here, the more impressed I am by it, and the more faith I have in our ability, if we decide to do great things, that we can achieve them.
What's the first thing you'll do when you come back to Earth besides hug your family and friends? What do you want to eat? What do you want to do?
You know, my daughter Samantha asked me that last night, that very question. And, you know, the food, although you miss, like, fresh food, is not as important as the experience of just sitting down and relaxing and, you know, where your stuff, your utensils, everything doesn't float away. So I miss, you know, the experience more than what we actually get to eat. But Misha and I, Misha's right next to me here, we actually have a pretty common thing that we both desire to do, and that's like jump into some water. And, you know, we don't take a shower up here or a bath, and we both crave, like, jumping into a pool.
Well, I can understand that. Let me ask you this. Do you dream differently up there when you're sleeping?
Yes. You know, when I was here last time, people asked me if I, like, dreamt, if I had space dreams or Earth dreams, and I couldn't remember. So this time I made a point to write them down. And what I learned is, in the beginning, I dreamt mostly of Earth, and then kind of, you know, more space dreams throughout the middle, and now I'm kind of dreaming more about the Earth again. And but the interesting thing is by writing them down a lot, especially in the beginning, it kind of taught me how to remember them. And it's kind of like a skill that you can develop, I guess.
The two of you really have risked it all. I mean, not only physically, but some life experiences, all of that for a year in space. Why?
Well, for me, it's more about doing something that I believe in and important. I believe in space flight and why we do this and the benefits it has to humanity. So it's more about that than doing something, exciting and challenging on a personal level. So, I do it because I think it's important for us as a species to continue to press, the limits of what we're capable of doing. And, I'm just privileged to be a part of it.
Now, this is really quite an opportunity with you and your brother Mark to study two guys, one in space, one on Earth, same DNA. What do you think they'll find?
And Tom, do you have any questions for Mikhail?
I don't.
Like a lot of the experiments we do, experiments in general, you generally take a lot of samples to get statistically significant data. In the case of my brother and I, obviously there's just one. It's one sample. It's one experiment, one group. The two of us. So any conclusions we make are going to have to be, pretty broad in scope and not very specific. But hopefully, by having two people that are genetically almost identical, we can learn areas where we need to look deeper and do more research into what the effects are on a genetic level from long-duration spaceflight. We get a lot of radiation up here. There's a lot of other, potential effects due to this environment that we live in, this harsh environment. And by looking at two people that are very, very close together, in a lot of ways, there's a lot of things we can learn about that we need to then go and investigate further.
Well, I actually do have a question for you and Mikhail, Scott, and that is, given what the two of you have been through, do the two of you ever want to go on a trip to Mars or deeper into space?
Учитывая все, что вы пережили, вы хотели бы на Марс полететь?
Yeah, I would actually do that, but it would, clearly depend on the timing and, exactly what the mission was, what kind of hardware we're flying. I'm certainly not a proponent of a one-way trip to Mars. I'll leave that to some more adventurous people. But I would go if the timing was right.
Okay. Well, it's been great talking to you. We will. Yes. It's been great talking. I was going to ask the same thing of Mikhail. Would he do it?
На самом деле до Марса мы уже долетели.
Actually, we did fly to Mars already. If you think about the time that we have spent on station, now we just got to get back home from Mars to the ground. I'm just kidding. That's a joke. If you think about it seriously, I agree with the commander.
То есть немножко отдохнуть и...
Yeah, it would make sense to take a break, and then if there was such an opportunity, yes, I would want to go together.
And how much are the two of you exercising to maintain the bone mass and the body mass, the muscle?
Okay. Yeah, it varies individually, but generally about 30 minutes a day of aerobic exercise and about an hour a day of on the resistive exercise machine, and that's about 6 days a week. But everyone has a little bit different routine.
Scott, Mikhail, thank you two so much. Scott, we miss you down here. We'll miss you at Mardi Gras this weekend, that's for sure.
Yeah, I wish I was going to be there with you guys.
Give the best to everyone. Thank you both.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the KTRK TV portion of the event. Please stand by for a voice check from Time Magazine.
Moves more slowly in space than it does on Earth. Our conversation is part of our long-term coverage. Later this month, we'll release 2 more episodes. We'll show you what it's like for Scott and Mikhail to return to Earth. Station, this is Time Magazine. How do you hear me?
We hear you loud and clear, Jeff.
So, Scott, what's the count? How many days have you been up there? How many days are left?
You know, for a long time I was counting up, so I could have told you how many days we've been here. It's definitely over 300, but I can't tell you exactly. I can tell you there are 26 days left, but that's mostly because my friend Misha here keeps reminding me how many days we have left.
Are you guys counting down the days until you return? Is this the kind of thing that you mark a hash mark off on the wall?
Yeah, I take a peek at it every once in a while. I'm not counting days. I'm counting percentages, and we have like 8% left. But I got some good advice when I first got up here, and it was count up, don't count down. And I did that for a long time. But I think about probably, you know, once we got into February, I definitely look at the schedule. And one of the reasons I look at the schedule is you kind of have to think about, hey, what am I doing in a month? What does my schedule look like in a month? So, you know, previously, you know, the month look-ahead schedule, I was here. Now I'm going to be on Earth, and I have to think about those things. So it's something that's kind of hard to ignore at this point.
Well, are you ready to come home? How do you pack up after leaving, after spending a year in space? I know you're not traveling with all that much, but there's still things to bring home.
Yeah, we can bring a little bit of stuff home on the Soyuz, and you know, about 1.5 kilograms worth of stuff, and then we can bring the stuff that would probably be equivalent to a carry-on bag. And I have a lot more stuff up here. Mostly, you know, NASA provided equipment and actually a lot of clothing that I didn't use, and that stuff will all get thrown away. So the way you pack is you throw most of your stuff away, and then you pack up a little bit that'll go with you on the Soyuz, and then some that'll go on a future SpaceX vehicle.
Scott, when you close the hatch, it may be for the last time. You've been on the station once before. You've now put together about 1.5 years in space. What does that feel like? Are you ending a chapter? Do you look forward to the possibility of going back?
You know, I think a lot of people that have had the privilege to fly in space maybe never even give it up after they, you know, after they feel like it's maybe their last flight. And I think my brother had that feeling a little bit, and I think he still holds out the possibility that maybe he would actually be able to fly in space again someday, and you know, maybe in a commercial vehicle. And I think a lot of astronauts do that. So if this does wind up being my last flight, I don't necessarily know that when I close the hatch, I will, you know, with 100% certainty, feel like it's the very last time.
A year in space or a year on Earth are still 365 days or thereabouts. But does it move more slowly in space? Does the experience of the passage of time seem different?
Yeah, I think it does. At times, I feel like I've lived my whole life up here, and I've forgotten what it feels like to be on Earth. So, you know, every day, although our schedule is somewhat varied, you know, the scenery doesn't change. The environmental conditions don't change much. The schedule, you know, when you get up, when you go to sleep doesn't change much. The company changes pretty infrequently. I mean, even though these are great guys, I mean, they'll be friends for life. You know, they're, you know, for the most part, even though we've had people come and go, you know, you see the same people every day. So it does, time does seem to drag on a little bit slowly. The days actually go by very quickly, but the weeks and the months go by more slowly than I think on Earth.
Misha, you're going to have a lot to miss about this space experience when you come home. It all seems like a grand adventure, but what will you miss the most? Will it be the zero-G, the view, the hard scientific work?
Михаил, вы будете о многом скучать, когда вы вернетесь на Землю. Это мы понимаем, но о чем вы будете скучать больше всего? Это микрогравитация или научная работа или что?
Сложно выделить, наверное, что-то одно.
It's hard to think of just one thing. Yeah, I do like microgravity. Unfortunately, you have to pay for the consequences of that when you return on Earth. But I think I'll miss the crew the most. I'll miss the work on the orbit, working with the crew. Again, that's important. We have a really great team, and I will miss that on the Earth.
And here's a question for both guys. What is the thing that's been the most exciting experience you've had aboard the station this time? And what was the most boring thing you had to do aboard the station?
Теперь вопрос для вас обоих. Что было самое яркое, самое интересное на станции, и что было самое скучное в этот раз?
You know, I always say that, and I'll give you a specific here, but I do always say that what I like about this is the challenge of doing something very difficult, working hard at it, and being successful, hopefully, and I really enjoy that, and it's kind of the little things. Some not so little, like yesterday we fixed the carbon dioxide removal system in one day, which, we felt like we needed to get it up and running again, and doing that in one day was some very challenging and rewarding work, and I really enjoy doing that type of stuff. But I had never done a spacewalk before, so if I had to pick one thing, I would say, going outside for the first, second, and third time would be, for me, the most memorable. And the most boring things, I don't know. That's a tough one. I never really find myself bored up here. What I generally find myself with is not enough time to do the things I would like to do, the things I want to get done. It's not like I sit around and, watch a lot of TV or read a lot of books up here. I'm always doing something. And now that I'm getting towards the end of this, I feel like, I probably have, more stuff to do than I have time to do it.
There were memorable moments here on station. First is the arrival of a new crew, doing an EVA, doing a spacewalk, and our crew did it. It was a tense time, you had to focus. All the dynamic modes are very memorable. New Year's, that's a big holiday here on station. It was the first time I had a New Year's here on station. As for the boring days, it's probably when they give us a break after we do a lot of intense work. Sometimes we get to rest up to 3 days. I don't like that time a lot. I would prefer to work. The time goes by faster, and it is interesting for yourself to work.
Well, Godspeed, gentlemen. We thank you for your time, and the Time Video team and I look forward to returning to Kazakhstan and being there to do our part to help welcome you home on March 1st.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff, and it'll be great seeing you guys there when we get back to Earth.
Station, this is Houston ACR. Thank you. That concludes our event.
Thank you, KTRK TV and Time Magazine. Station, we're configuring some comm on the ground. Please stand by. And Scott, do you have the view of Picker 1?